Welcome to Obsessed, where Mika, Tia, and I challenge the thoughts that limit you, where we provide the tools for transformation. Be prepared to be swept away into the raw power of obsession, unlocking secrets and stories behind the insatiable hunger for growth and change. This is more than just a podcast. This is your story. It is a manifesto for those who refuse to settle, who dare to dream, and who are relentless in the pursuit of living a great life. Get obsessed with your life. We are kicking toxic family members to the curb today with Dr. Sherrie Campbell. There is no room in our lives right now for any toxicity. And we're especially talking family members. You are going to love Dr. Sherrie's story, her vision. She is a best selling author. She is a TEDx star. And she is a podcaster extraordinaire. Sherapy sessions, check her out. Check out the show notes. We have Dr. Sherrie in the Obsessed Studios. Sherrie, we love you. Biggest fans. Fangirling now.
Love you guys too. Thank you so much for having me back on the show. I remember when I was first on it like several years ago.
A
So,
long time ago.
yeah, it's a nice revisit and a lot has happened. And so I'm really excited to catch up. And I told my following that we were live. I don't know how we see all that, but we're live. So if you're all there, see you.
You got the
You have
brave hearts here. Brave
Yes.
yes,
hearts.
and you have
Yes.
such a loyal following because you're such an authentic person. Not only are you visually on the outside absolutely flawless, you have a heart of gold and it comes out in the work that you do in the work that you do every single day. Like you put it all out there. You don't sugarcoat anything. You're so honest about what you and these other people that have similar stories to you deserve in life. That
Yeah.
hasn't always been that way, has it?
No, I especially, I think experts try to keep a safe distance from maybe their own story because they may feel that it could pull away from their expertise and make them look more emotional, but that doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me that being authentic is about speaking the right language, and the right language is your pain and your joy and your triumph and your other things. And unfortunately, our culture has such a cognitive dissonance to believe that family members and especially parents can be not good. That we're not just haloed because we can give birth. Really, truly, anyone can do that. The organ is built to do that. But you're bringing a child into this world, and then the assumption becomes that the child is bad. But I just don't see how children can cause bad parents. And my newest book is on emotionally abusive parents. I've moved from the outskirts of the whole family, siblings, and all of that, grandparents, all the things into parents. It's just the way that my writing has gone. I think for me, it's my own journey as well. And I'm peeling the onion, right? So it is wonderful to be able to connect with people in a very authentic way and to know that they're seen. And personally, I wouldn't follow a leader who I didn't know suffered. Because then if suffering came, they're not going to know where to take me. So I am loud and proud about the fact that I've suffered and suffer from horrible toxic family abuse.
And a lot of people in the situation, they don't even understand that they are in a toxic relationship, an abusive relationship. And not till I met Sherrie Campbell a few years ago, I had no boundaries. I was like, everybody come in, take anything you want from me. And she is so clear on her boundaries, so clear on her vision for her life. It was so refreshing. I I think there are a lot of people that are going to listen to this episode and think that their parents, their spouses, their kids, calling them names, calling them fat, calling them ugly, putting them down. They think this is just normal. This is how it is.
I didn't know much different either. I did know that other people's families didn't have 9 marriages between their parents. Like, I knew that wasn't normal, right? But as far as how I was treated, I didn't really know. but I knew I never felt good. I knew I never felt safe. I knew I never felt loved. I knew I never felt wanted. And I thought it was, I thought I was causing, because when you don't have any refuting evidence and your parents are giving you these messages, all children believe their parents. And really, biologically, it's best for survival that we do believe our parents because they're our leaders. We're born to them. So I always just felt I owed them, and that obligation went from child to parent, which is bananas. How can I be more responsible in a relationship than the people who chose to bring me here? If it's your choice to bring a child here, then you're choosing the obligation responsibility aspect of that relationship. The child doesn't owe and cannot be responsible to the parents for the rest of their lives. That means the child is parenting the parent. And that's completely backward.
What you said really reminds me of a book I read, Good Inside, and it's about how all people and all children are actually good inside, specifically children. And it's how to caretake for them as they get older because when children are so young and they rely on their parents, they do believe that they're the bad person and that the parent is the good person because in a child's mind of survival, they need that. Like they need to know that there's good and it's easier for them to digest that they're bad. And that's such a heartbreaking thing when you like break it down and actually think about how that changes our even our brain chemistry and how that changes how we hold ourselves and create safety within. It's almost impossible to do that when
Totally.
we're convinced that we're the bad people.
Yeah, it's actually totally impossible. We can't learn, like, there are still things in my life that I can't feel that I give. In other words, my brave-hearted communities like feeling so validated. They feel so validated by my work. The one word I probably hear the most, or I feel seen, I feel validated. Because I'm writing the books and I'm doing this work and putting the first prints in the snow, I don't know what it feels like to feel validated like that. I just know what it feels like to give it and then to receive the beauty of other people feeling the validation that I'm able to give by sharing my story. But there's nothing in front of me offering that first. So I know that I will never have that, and that is okay. Right? I will never really know what that feels like because my perpetrators are the only people who can give me that feeling. And after I was on Kristen Cavallari's show, my mom had a friend of hers sent to my page saying that I've turned my childhood story into a money-making scheme. So I handled her very articulately. And
Can
she,
you
yeah,
share how to I because that conversation with Kristen was so powerful, just the bonding over similar situations, how it never ends, it seems like, for
it
you.
never ends. And what I think what happened is there was a girl that reached out to me after the show and she's, "Oh my God, I know your family. When you said your daughter's name, I was like, I know your mom, OMG." I didn't say anything to her. I was like spooked, to be quite honest. I was like, I don't know. I never expect my family to even care or be interested in anything I do because I've always been the scapegoat, the unwanted, the dumb, the stupid, that person in my family, the crazy one. And I just said, wow, what a small world. Glad the show was helpful. But then soon after that, my mom sent a woman to my page, and I do know her. I remember her around 3 years old. I'm very closely tight with some PIs. I did a background check on her because I do have memory that's not there. And I wanted to be sure because she said she was in my life throughout junior high. So I typically don't confront the flying monkeys, but because this was so personal and sent to my place of work, I have to keep myself safe. And I do know things that she doesn't know I know. And best way to set boundaries is to let her know what I know.
And this is just my legal mind. I'm sure in the back of her mind, she's thinking defamation, slander, libel, but truth is always the defense for any argument. And everything you speak is your truth, your opinion.
It is my truth, it's my opinion, and it's my experience. And I have a right to tell my story. We all do. We all have that right to tell our stories. I think it's so important that we do. And because we can help other people. When I first wrote my book, I actually thought I would be stoned off the planet. I really didn't know that there were other people like me out there. I felt so alone in my world. Um,
Really? That is shocking to me because I see, obviously, the adulation and support. So that's interesting
I
that you felt that way.
but I didn't have it before. I hadn't seen anyone write a book like mine before. And I was actually asked to write the book, but it was going to be more generated by loving yourself. But I had already self published a book called Loving Yourself, The Mastery of Being Your Own Person. It's actually more of a book of poetry. And that was my very first book. And I got into the writing field from that. I just wrote it because writing is my first language. I express myself far better through writing than I do any other avenue. So I think that me writing was my way of just having a lifeline. I feel like I had to, if you take the word and you spell it two different ways, like the act of writing, you spell it that way. But if you think about correcting yourself, RIGHT, I had to write myself back into existence through writing. Had I believed the narrative that was said every day about my low quality human being that I was raised to believe that I was, then I don't know that I would have gotten here and I don't know that I would have escaped my family dynamic.
How has this all affected your life? You're a mother, you are a partner. How has this affected your life? Not only speaking out about toxic relationships, but also being, I don't want to say the poster child, but you are because there is no one else doing it like you're doing it.
Yeah, I feel like it's taken my partner of 8 years a long time to really understand because he doesn't have the same kind of trauma that I have at all. And initially, I think he really wanted to help me fix things. But now today, he has seen enough that he doesn't want me anywhere near that family. And I feel like I've finally been able to heal. To not have any ties to them was excruciating at first, and I felt so alone. And I was truly programmed to believe that I wouldn't make it. And then I was cut out of certain trusts that were left for my daughter for her education. I was cut away from that. So it's instead of saying, sorry, we really love you, we want to fix this, I was starved. They were going to try to starve me out. Luckily, I don't have a great attachment to money and I have figured out how to do it. And I got 2 years for free for my daughter for college. I just feel like no weapon formed against you really gets to prosper. And I've been shown that time and time again. And I think those are the rewards for my bravery because I've never done the brave thing bravely. And I say it all the time because I think people are like, oh my God, you're so strong. I could never do that. I did it fucking wide eyed and petrified, so scared. But I didn't feel like I had any other choice because it was worse where I was. Like it was just a lesser evil for me to just do emotional homicide on my family relationships because staying there was killing me. It was killing me. And maybe there's something inside my soul that just knows that I was destined for a different life. Just feel like I was placed in the wrong family. I'm just not, I'm nothing like them. And I would say it. I would say it out loud to my mom. I would say it. So I think I've just really been able to heal and to learn how to have an impact and to be who I am and to learn how to really like that person. I really do have a very positive relationship with myself. I certainly have hangover moments or hang up spaces in that relationship, but I know exactly where my bottoms are, what my core wounds are, when they're acting out, when I'm projecting those things, because we also project our fears onto our relationships and our people. Without that knowledge, I think I would be a mess. like I really was a mess before, and I think I would be a mess. And I think it's okay to be messy. I think it's part of healing.
It is okay to be messy, and I feel like you're right, you have to embrace the healing journey for whatever it looks like, 'cause it is unknown, right? Like, you've never done it before, so you don't have that how-to step-by-step map that would be so ideal in the beginning that would help being less terrified if that was something that was available to us, but entering any kind of transition, let alone one that you are terrified to enter, is definitely brave, and it's
Yes.
not easy to do.
No.
What steps did you start taking down that path? Like, when and what point in your life did you know that it was, no matter how hard it was, the right thing for you to become who you are today?
It was a moment that was not the biggest moment of pain, but all I can say to you is my bandwidth to continue to be abused became so clear because the relationship ended over something extremely petty, which nearly everything was petty. I knew that if I was going to get abused over such small stuff, that my life was going to always be that way. And I don't want to live that way. And they cut me off. I was cut off, but I didn't mend the fence. And that was the game my whole childhood is ostracize me, silence me, and then I have to fix it. And I didn't fix it. And it was just over for me. I just was like, I just can't continue doing this. These people want my life to be as hard and impossible as it can possibly be. And they will do petty to extreme things to make sure that my life is as hard as it can be and as scary as it can
Do you have any, like, red
be.
flags or warning signs that people can take into account and into their life, being like, "Maybe this kinda sounds like something that I grew up with. This kinda sounds like my story." Are there things that people can
And what if you're like 60 years old and you think everything was
Yeah,
amazing growing up, and then you're like, you hear Dr. Sherry and you're like, "Oh my god,
that's not normal?
wasn't right." No, that's not
Well, it
normal.
doesn't really work like that
I don't know.
because we don't just wake up one day at 60 and not know that we were abused. We will know that we never felt good. We will know that we felt nervous. We will know that we were always pleasing. We will know that pleasing never worked. We will know we get tired, right? But we may not recognize that we're doing all the work in the relationship for a long time. Most people cut off in midlife. This cancel culture society attacks me a lot because I'll have these mothers, especially, they're so abusive. They'll be like, my daughter, 20 years old, cut ties with me because of you. You're ruining the American family. I'm like, I don't know you. Never met your daughter, never treated your daughter. I promise you, I'm not the cause and source of your issues. If she reached for my books and I don't know her and I didn't refer her to my books, then that's a you issue. And come blame me. Okay, perfect. Because you're exactly why I write. You're just giving me content and fuel to keep writing. So most of us cut ties in midlife. And I really think that the reason that is I feel like we get to midlife, we hit around 40 to 45, and we've done it all now. We've been moms, we've gone to school, we've gotten married, maybe divorced more than once. We've had the child. Nothing's new. So we get to 40 and we're like, okay, we know how to do all the things. And now we think we're not really birth to life anymore. Now we're looking more life to death and our perspective changes. And I think we start to think, I don't want to live the second half in all the same ways that I did in the first half. Now I'm an adult. I've got children. I've got my own income. I've got all the things. I have more power to make choices. And we start to evaluate what is bringing me down. Who and what needs to be eliminated for me to live a meaningful life? Because we get into a stage called generativity versus stagnation. We don't, we want to know that we're having an impact on the next generation. It's very important for us between 40 and 60 to feel like we're whole. And what does whole mean? Not a perpetual state of well being. Whole is just self awareness, being very conscious of ourselves. And so, if there were red flags, look to your insecurities. Those have been my talismans for my growth. They have been my guiding angels toward my growth. Because if I feel insecure about something, then I'm very clear that I want to feel opposite of that. And then I will research the path to feeling, how do I feel the opposite of insecure? How do I do the opposite of people pleasing? How do I say no when I need to say no without being afraid? Or what if I need to say no while I'm afraid? While I'm afraid, I always have. What if I lose a friendship? What does that mean? If I lose a friendship because I say no, or I'm not willing to do all the work of that, then okay, now I'm going to feel abandoned. Okay, so how do I work on abandonment? How do I see that losing bad people is a good thing? It's not abandonment. That's what I've done. And I'm writing a workbook right now on exactly the process of how to do that. And it's a lot of writing because that's the only way I know how. I'm sure there's other experts that can do workbooks without having the person write. But for me, writing distracts the left brain in a task, which allows our right brain, which is very creative and very spiritual and more auspicious, more into the depths of what's really like to be human and to feel some of these feelings. And I think that we get clarity from that space.
And we like sharing clarity. And it's so true. Your approach to thinking about this, you've touched on so many different points. And it's about, I think, being self aware. Am I right? Just, and
Yes.
so many people aren't self aware. And it's so easy to go retrospect and say, oh my God, this person. And one of the things I remember when I first met Dr. Sherry, people, some of the comments were, of course, they were all, I love Dr. Sherry. She's amazing. But then they were like, she taps into her story and her, I'm not going to say anger, like it is just yesterday and today. And that's how I believe you connect with so many people because you understand it like they do.
Yeah, I think living this one just gives you a different view because you're not intellectualizing it. You're like, "Oh, yeah." When I have people in my office and I a long waiting list to get in here, but I get to be choosy in who comes in, right? Hands down, every woman that's been abused by her mom has body image issues. Every single one of us. And they don't know that till they come into my office. Like, narcissistic moms are just really awful to their daughters about their looks, their beauty, their intelligence, their bodies, their everything. And almost all of us have eating disordered issues. And I think that's really interesting. So there's commonalities that you will have with another survivor that you just won't find. I have none of these commonalities with my person. And I'm honestly glad that he doesn't have them because it gives me a freaking break where he's like a vacation for me all the time. But he knows enough now to know that I have nightmares. He knows enough now to know that I've got triggers. And sometimes he will trigger certain things of mine. But when I speak a language to him, okay, I'm feeling like this, he gets it now. And he's come a long way, but he wants to get it, but he can't live it with me. He can just hear me and be like, okay, so I stepped in this pothole over here. And not that he's on eggshells at all, because I want him to be fully himself, and he is. But I can say, listen, when you do this, it makes me feel like this. And I know that I'm feeling all of this about you, and you didn't cause 50% of it. So just know that I know that. But even if I didn't have my trauma, I would still want my person to know, hey, when you step on my foot, it hurts. You know what I mean? But without any trauma, he would be 100% responsible for stepping on my foot. But I have to be really aware of where my past starts and stops and where someone else starts and stops so that I'm not doing the onslaught. And I'm a person that I need to go inside my journal and I need to figure out where is that meeting point. It takes me a little longer. But what I come back with is far deeper. more growth promoting for my relationship and also so much healthier for me. I've learned composure. I've learned elegance. I've learned poise. So when I'm reactive, I've learned to wait. I think people misunderstand emotional regulation. I think people understand that to mean you are in control of your emotions. I don't agree. When I am the most upset, emotional regulation to me means I need to channel how my upset comes out at what rate and what volume. It is not about not having the extreme reaction. It is about learning how to slow it down so that you can be articulate. So if you think about it, you cannot yell and talk slow at the same time unless you want to sound like Dory on Finding Nemo, talking to the whale. You really cannot yell and talk slow at the same time. So when I'm feeling really reactive or really upset, I practice enough to know like I need to slow down. And if I can't do it, then I say I need some time to process. I will get back with you. Every conversation can wait because if I want to have an impact, I'm not going to do it through having a tantrum. If I'm going to have an impact, I need to come back and be a woman, a grown woman, not a grown girl. To me, that's what emotional regulation is. It's not about trying to control your feelings, make them less. It's about having the full feeling and channeling it properly.
Are you a yeller? Because I remember a conversation we had, and you told me you really have never had to raise your voice to your child. And some of your advice, and okay, to be honest, I have 4 boys. It's crazy here. But the way you communicate to your child, your daughter, was with such eloquence and with such logic. I'm like, how does she do this? She's an
So I
evolved mom.
you though, I was a rager as a teenager because I was being abused and I didn't know I was being abused because the abuse was covert. I didn't know I was being picked on, but I would rage, like I would see red. And then I was labeled very abusive. So maybe the gift I've given myself from that experience was to just not yell because I really believed it made me a bad, decrepit, wretched, undeserving, horrible waste of life. That's how I was parented to believe. When I'm being provoked to yell, by the way, totally provoked. So I had such a bad feeling about that that I just changed that completely. But in doing that, I also lost my voice completely for years. But I really look at my daughter as a gift and I look at her as not mine. I look at her as something that I'm here to guide and love and nurture and raise. And I do think raising boys and girls are completely different because my boyfriend has 2 boys, and when they were little, everything was a weapon, like a protein shake. And my shoulders would turn to earrings. I'm like, "Oh my god." I had this talk with his kids once because they were wild and insane in my house, and I'm like, "Girlie, how think my teeth is gonna fall. One's in a sleeping bag." I was just like, "Oh my god, oh my god." God's idea was to go in and kick him in the butt and put one in a headlock.
Wrestling is amazing. It's so much fun.
I'm like, "What's" but he's, like, not helping the wild to calm down. He's joining in, and now he's upset. He's yelling, and I'm like, "Oh my god." So my daughters so in the morning, he was embarrassed and this and that. I just came to the boys, and this is how I parent in general, but I'm like,
This is good.
"I wanna know if you guys know how to think about your own thinking." Me knowing that their mother is really tyrannical and a yeller and all the things. And I think when they get to my person's house, they feel like they're out of prison. So they're like really wild. I said, "How do you think I
Wait, I
felt
love how you call Scott your person. I
I
think
love
that's so
him,
sweet.
my person?" So I asked the boys, I said, "How do you think I felt in my own home last night?" "Oh, I bet you felt annoyed and mad." And I was like, "Wow, I'm so proud of you." Yes, that's how I felt. And I said, "So I want to teach you something." And I said, "When you're in my house, you're a guest. So what that means is you have to come into my house and look at how my house is, how I treat my doggies, how I treat my daughter, how I treat my furniture, and you need to follow that. I am not going to change the world on its axis to make you my guest. Being a guest does not mean that you own my home because see, I own my home. And I said, "Do you get that?" "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, good." I said, "Because loving you boys is like loving a forest fire." I said, "Once y'all get going,
What? It's like loving a forest fire.
yes,
I am using that
fire
tonight at dinner.
the
That's
fire
my
is
that's
amazing." I said, "But do fires care about the homes they build down or the TVs that fall off the wall or the animals that might be inside?" "No." I said, "Okay, so what does it take to put a fire out?" And they were like, "Water." And I'm like, "Yes, your dad going in and kicking one of you in the butt and putting you other one in a headlock. You just think he's playing. This isn't working." And then he's frustrated. He's embarrassed and he starts yelling. I don't allow yelling in my home. There's no yelling here. We can talk it out. So here's what I would do. I'd put one of you outside on my porch in the chair and I'd take the other one if you want to walk. Then I'd drop one off and I'd pick the other one up and the other one dropped off and come back inside. And the other one would have to go on the walk, and we'd have a little walk and talk about what appropriate behavior is. And I said, "So that's how it works here." And then boys were sitting right next to each other on the couch, totally calm. My boyfriend was like, "What is going on?" He wasn't parented that way either. He never treated his kids like they had a brain or a mind that they could think something through. They have never once acted out again at my house. Never.
incredible. Tia, are
It
you
is.
taking notes? Because you're
As,
like,
like, a parent of a toddler and pregnant again, I have definitely embraced and realized how parenting a lot is reparenting yourself, and
Yeah.
I did not come from as the conditioning that you experience is very
Yeah.
different from the conditioning I experienced,
Yeah.
and the fact that you can and have done the work to reparent yourself to that extreme that you can even sit there and talk to somebody else's kids and get them to understand and co-regulate with you is it's mind-blowing. It's actually revolutionary. Like, it is not common in our society.
And you know what? What's interesting is I do write about reparenting, but for me, I didn't even view it that way. I just viewed it as every child deserves the utmost respect. And I think about what does respect feel like to me? I had to look up the definition because I didn't even know what the definition was. And when I saw the definition, I was shook. The definition is to hold someone in high esteem and to see them for their gifts and to honor their gifts. The idea of respect I was raised in was like, you do what I say or get out, or like you're bad. And I think that they're not my kids. And I feel like I don't have a right to ever yell at my own child, let alone, but never could yell at anyone else's children. And I never would. And I've never yelled at my daughter. My daughter's never seen yelling in the house. And so she was a part of this conversation. And we teased her because she like backed herself into the couch like she was in a war bunker because it was so unfamiliar to her. I really respect my daughter. I think she's very smart, far smarter than myself. So I better treat her that way. And I have always allowed her to choose her own discipline. And I give her assignments more around, I don't have never taken anything away from her. I've never taken her time. I've never taken her possessions. I've never done that. Not that you can't do that, but I haven't done that because it doesn't really tie into the behavior. I wanted her to learn about her behavior. And I had to rarely do any parenting. And I would say that I really do was given such an angelic child, and much of who she is has no bearing on me. She's just so special and it's just so magical. She's just got, I
very
swear,
tough, very
well,
tough.
she'd be like, "Mommy, anything." And it would be like glitter.
Oh my god, I want one of those.
Just
You
angelic. She wants to be a third grade teacher. She's had her own trauma with her dad. She's watched me go through all the trauma with my mom. I think that my fascination with law and crime makes me a little bit of a
oh, yeah.
scared mom. I could work on that, but I really just think she's so incredible. And I just would
Wow.
never treat something incredible in any way other less than completely incredible.
And it sounds like you parent through awareness, so she's not conditioned out of her self-awareness. Like, she sounds has grown up with so much connection to herself, so much self-awareness, and that's the magic she's sneezing out is self-awareness, and we're just not used to it
Yeah,
as a young
my
age.
daughter does.
Yeah, she just really is. She's just a very high level soul. I'm just in awe of her. I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky. I'm the luckiest mom there
Oh,
ever was. And maybe that's my gift for surviving through the hell of what I went through. That I got this highly
wow.
child and I get to
This
stop
one.
that generational trauma. The TED Talk was the absolute scariest thing I've ever done in my whole world life. Like I actually went completely blank for a
Oh,
minute
I can
and I can totally tell where it
it looks
is.
amazing, by the way.
Thank you. I went blank and I was like sweat, salamander, like soaking wet. And I had just had a major surgery as well. So I got off the stage and she was there and she hates flying. And so I went off script for a little bit. I just kept talking. I just kept talking and I finally found it again. And I sat next to her and just to see her see me do that, knowing that only 100 speakers are chosen every round of TED and over 100,000 apply.
Wow.
And she grabbed my hand. She's like, Mom, you did so good. And I'm like, I never want to do that again. So scary. I'm very good live, but to memorize 11 minutes was so hard for
That's
me.
a lot. Wow.
It was so hard. And I talked so fast. I can tell they slowed it down. I was like, I just, but
Wow.
it was called Disrupt. That was the title of that was the theme of my TED Talk. And to watch her watch me use my voice and be a disruptor of a cultural norm and to have her see it because she experiences it with her dad because I accidentally married my mom. And I feel, I,
Funny.
yeah, I do
Good.
feel like she can identify with my work because she does live it with him. And she does, I think she will have issues with feeling worthy to men and stuff like that, no matter how well I've parented her because that's who I think she contracted as her dad in this life. And I'll be there when she needs to work through it. So I just think having kids is the greatest honor. She owes me nothing. She owes me absolutely nothing. And she will never feel that way. Never.
Wow. Get ready for an interesting son-in-law then.
I know.
I'm just teasing. And
No, I'm ready.
you're ready. And I just want to say, talking about men, one of the most poignant things, this is, if you don't know, Sherrie Campbell has the biggest heart and she understands the voices of those that can't speak. And she was so gracious to bookend our project, Man, You Are Crazy with Detective Chris Anderson and Kevin Donaldson. It
Obsessed.
was it was the book Man, You Are Crazy, beyond my wildest dreams. These 2 big burly men threw all their heart and souls into this book, telling every single story to the point that it's disturbing to hear these. And we knew we needed somebody like Sherrie who was legitimate in terms of making the story legitimate, and I know that you've created a great bond with Kevin Donaldson.
Ah,
Thank you. I know.
I could
I
not love
know.
even more. Like I love male voices and I
Mhm.
highlight male voices a lot in my work. And it's men, the brains of men and women are developed
Mhm.
very differently. And talk therapy or talking, opening, and being vulnerable is not encouraged. And that's another cognitive dissonance in this society we need to work through. So when I was invited onto this project, I took it over many other ones I was invited to be a part of simply because
Mhm.
they were men. And I love boys. I love my person. I love his sons just crazy. I would say I probably am not well when they play their sports.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
competitive and yeah, I need
Yeah.
on my emotional regulation. I get so excited, like I freak out. But even his boys, when they open up to me, and they do open
Mhm.
up to me a lot,
Mhm.
I just feel so fortunate that it takes a lot for any boy, man to open up to anybody. So
Mhm.
I was so happy. And if Kevin's listening, I'm just giving you such a big hug. And he had no idea that his life story would actually tie back to toxic family.
Mhm.
I think Kevin had an awareness that it's family and all families have their problems. I think
Mhm.
that that was there, but I think what he really came to do a deep dive on, and it deepened his own writing in the book, is
Mhm.
wow, this started a long time. And perhaps this is why I even chose to be a cop. So
Mhm.
Julie, you were the big person in orchestrating that. So thank you and congrats. What an
Oh
incredible
my gosh. I
project that was.
You hear all the whispers in the universe. I know Sherry, I know Kevin, I know Chris, and
Yes,
there's a message people need to hear, and you are not alone. And men have such a hard time talking about that sort of thing.
totally agree.
We love you, Sherry.
Love you.
Sherry, tell us how we can support you besides your amazing new book. There it is, Adult Survivors of
Go
Emotionally
get it.
Abusive Parents. Go buy it right now.
Go
Leave a
get it.
review and leave a review, a
Yes.
five-star
Also,
review.
I think I'm almost at 50,000 views in 1 month. So it's that's exciting. The average TED Talk only gets like
Wow.
200 and some views. So I'm really happy that it's going this well. I just want to spread the word because I think one thing at the TED Talk is the response was incredible. People were just crying. Um, and that I don't know. Are you going to throw tomatoes at me and be like the people who attack me in social media, or are you going to?
Yeah.
And just I was getting cheered for, and I got people were standing after. I was like, all I
Mhm.
can. I was just so sweaty because I forgot
Oh my god.
speech for a minute, but it was wonderful. And just watch the talk. I think it's a great introduction to this topic.
And we'll put the link in the show notes. I want everyone here to get obsessed with Dr. Sherrie Campbell. Follow her on Facebook, number one, and be a disruptor. Be a
Yes,
disruptor like Sherrie Campbell.
yes. Thank
We
you,
love you, girl.
guys. Love.
Welcome to Obsessed, where Mika, Tia, and I challenge the thoughts that limit you, where we provide the tools for transformation. Be prepared to be swept away into the raw power of obsession, unlocking secrets and stories behind the insatiable hunger for growth and change. This is more than just a podcast. This is your story. It is a manifesto for those who refuse to settle, who dare to dream, and who are relentless in the pursuit of living a great life. Get obsessed with your life.